want you to visualize a picture for a second. It's from November 26, 2010, Black Friday. We're in Morenci, Michigan. It's a tiny, quiet town right on the Ohio border, you know, the kind of place where everybody knows everybody.
Yeah.
And in this picture are 3 little boys. Andrew, he's 9 years old, wearing brown pajamas with orange trim. Alexander is 7, in black pajama pants. And the youngest, Tanner, is just 5 years old, in camouflage pants and a Scooby-Doo shirt.
It's an image that has really just haunted that entire region for over 15 years now. Just 3 little kids in their pajamas.
And the reason it's so haunting is that it is the last time anyone can definitively say they saw those boys. They vanished, gone.
Just gone.
Into thin air. And for a decade and a half, their father, John Skelton, has stuck to this story that sounds like something out of a conspiracy thriller. He claimed he didn't hurt them. He claimed he gave them to an underground organization for protection.
He actually used this specific bizarre phrase that they would hibernate until they graduate.
Right, hibernate until they graduate.
Which, I mean, right off the bat, that sets this apart from your typical missing persons case.
Yeah.
Usually you have total denial. You hear, I turned my back for a second, or someone broke in. But here, you have a parent admitting to removing the children, but framing it as this benevolent act, a sanctuary.
And it created this sliver of hope that absolutely tortured the family for years.
Mm-hmm.
And that hope has really been the engine of this mystery. But today, January 17th, 2026, that whole narrative has shifted into something much, much darker. Because just weeks ago, John Skelton was supposed to walk out of prison.
He had served his time for unlawful imprisonment. He was days away from being a free man.
And then the other shoe dropped.
And it dropped hard. New charges, open murder.
Yeah.
I mean, the timeline here is incredible. Prosecutors waited until the very last second.
So that is our mission for this deep dive. We are looking at the case of the Skelton brothers. We're going to unpack the timeline of that Thanksgiving, the father's bizarre behavior, and specifically the newly released court documents from late 2025.
Because there is a piece of evidence in there, a digital footprint, that changes everything we thought we knew about his so-called protection story.
And we're also going to try and answer the why. You found some forensic profiling research from the Department of Justice that sheds a lot of light on what was likely going on in his head.
It turns out this case fits a terrifyingly specific profile that helps explain, well, the unexplainable.
Okay, so let's rewind to the beginning. Thanksgiving 2010. The boy's mother, Tanya Zuvers, makes a decision that I'm sure she has replayed in her mind a million times. She allows the boys to visit their father, John Skelton.
And looking at the sources, this was not a happy co-parenting situation. Not at all.
Far from it, right.
It was a very contentious custody dispute.
Yeah.
And looking back, there were massive red flags. John had actually fled to Florida with the boys before, took them out of school without permission.
Wow.
So the risk of flight was known, but, the visit was still allowed for the holiday. It's that difficult balance parents and courts always try to strike.
So Black Friday rolls around. John is supposed to return the boys. He doesn't. Instead, he's found in a local hospital.
And his story is, well, it's dramatic. He claims he's there because of a failed suicide attempt.
That was the claim. But the medical and police reality, and this is all over the community forums and reports from the time his injuries were incredibly minor.
Yeah, we're talking about a sprained ankle. It just didn't match the gravity of a man who had supposedly just tried to end his life. It felt performative.
A performance. And speaking of that, while he's at the hospital with his sprained ankle, police go to his house. And the description of that scene is so unsettling. It wasn't just messy. It felt constructed. What did they walk into?
Calculated chaos is maybe the best way to put it. The police chief at the time, Larry Weeks, described it as being in disarray.
Okay.
But the specifics are what matter. Officers found broken glass, cabinets were damaged, appliance cords were cut, and maybe most disturbingly, they found a noose.
A noose.
Yes. A noose found hanging from a banister, or at least signs that one had been there.
That's theatrical. A noose, broken glass, and I read there was a Bible open to a highlighted verse and a suicide note in a notebook.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like he was building a set for a play about a man having a breakdown.
That's a very sharp way to put it. It creates a narrative of a man snapping. But you have to contrast that snap with the fact that the boys were just gone. No bodies, no clothes, no trace.
Right. If someone snaps in a violent rage at home, usually the victims are found there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This scene felt less like a breakdown and more like a cover-up.
Yeah.
A distraction to buy himself some time.
Which brings us to his alibi. The story he has never wavered from in 15 years, the underground sanctuary.
Right. He claimed he handed Andrew, Alexander, and Tanner off to a group. Sometimes he hinted they were Amish, sometimes just a private organization, to protect them from their mother. He said they were safe, hibernating, and would come back when they were adults.
I want to pause on that for a second because this whole Amish theory really took on a life of its own. I was reading through old discussions from that time. A lot of people really wanted to believe it.
Of course, because it's the only scenario where the boys are still alive. For a desperate mother or a heartbroken community, you cling to the one story that doesn't end in a funeral.
But logically, it falls apart.
Almost immediately. The consensus from people who actually live near Amish communities is that this just does not happen. They don't take in 3 English. That's non-Amish children from a stranger.
Especially not 3 at once. And practically, how do you hide 3 growing boys for 15 years?
You can't. Think about it. They need food, clothes, medicine. They go through puberty. You can't hide 3 boys in a close-knit community without a single whisper getting out. It would require a massive conspiracy.
It's an insult to the investigators' intelligence.
It is. It's a fabrication designed to do 2 things. Cover up the crime and, crucially, keep Tanya, the mother, in a state of perpetual torture. Hope is a very cruel weapon in a situation like this.
Let's get into the psychology of that. You brought up a Department of Justice report, case management for a missing children homicide investigation. How does John Skelton fit into the data they have?
Well, the public myth is the stranger in the van, the random predator. But the reality, especially when a family member is the suspect, is very different. The DOJ report characterizes these types of killers as social marginals.
Social marginals. What does that actually mean for a guy like John Skelton?
It means they feel pushed to the edges of society. The stats show that 50% of these killers are unemployed. John Skelton was going through significant financial and employment stress. He fits that metric. He was losing his grip.
Okay, so he's under pressure. But a lot of people lose their jobs and don't hurt their kids. What's the trigger?
The report identifies specific stressors. And interestingly, the number one stressor isn't money, it's conflict with a female. That accounts for 45% of these cases.
The custody battle with Tanya.
John was in a bitter war with Tanya Zuvers. So this wasn't about protecting the children from her, as he claimed.
It was about hurting her by taking the children.
Precisely. It's a pattern often called retaliatory filicide. You kill the thing your spouse loves most to inflict the ultimate pain. Yeah. And if you look at the Amish sanctuary story through that lens, it makes a kind of horrific sense.
How so?
If he just killed them and admitted it, Tanya would grieve, bury them, and eventually, hopefully, start to heal. But by saying they are alive and hiding, he ensures she can never heal. She has to wake up every morning wondering if today's the day. It's a psychological torture device.
That is incredibly dark, and he kept that up for a decade and a half.
He did. Which brings us to the legal nightmare. Without bodies, prosecutors were stuck. They couldn't prove murder back in 2011, so he was convicted of unlawful imprisonment. She gets 10 to 15 years.
And the clock starts ticking. So, fast forward to March 2025. Less than a year from his release, and something heartbreaking happens. Tanya Zuvers petitions to have her sons legally declared dead.
I can't even imagine the strength that took to legally say, I am stopping the wait.
And why do that? Was it just for closure?
Closure and legal administration. But here is where it gets complicated. The judge, Catherine Thalla, granted the petition. Legally, the boys were presumed deceased. But, and this is a huge but, at that same hearing, she denied the request to legally state that John murdered them.
Wait, how does that work? If they're legally dead and he was the last person with them, how is that not a finding that he killed them?
It's the difference between a civil presumption and a criminal finding. The judge said there wasn't clear and convincing evidence for the cause of death. She basically said, we know they're gone, but declaring him the murderer without a body would just be speculation.
So as of March 2025, the system was basically saying, we know they're dead, we know he took them, but we can't legally prove he killed them.
Exactly. And that distinction terrified the community. His release date was set, November 29, 2025. He was going to walk out of Bellamy Creek Correctional Facility.
I was reading those community discussions from last year. The panic was real. People were asking, is this man just going to move back into the neighborhood?
It was a valid fear. He had served his time for the crime he was convicted of. If the state couldn't charge him with murder, he was a free man.
And then the twist. November 17th, 2025. 2 weeks. That's all he had left on his sentence. 2 weeks before he walks, Michigan State Police drop a bombshell.
3 counts of open murder, 3 counts of tampering with evidence.
But they didn't find the bodies, did they? I haven't seen any reports of a recovery.
No. And that's what makes this so shocking. Cold cases usually break because someone finds a bone or a car in a lake. Here, they didn't find a grave. They found data.
Let's talk about the smoking gun. This all came out in the recent reports. What did they find?
It was his search history. And the timing is what's devastating. In the week before the boys vanished, before Black Friday, before they even arrived for the visit, John Skelton was online. But he wasn't searching for Amish boarding schools or how to hide children.
What was he searching for?
He was searching for ways to kill.
Oh, wow. That takes the air out of the room.
It does. It changes the entire landscape of this case. It destroys the accident theory. It destroys the protection theory. It indicates premeditation. He was planning to end their lives before they even walked through his door for Thanksgiving.
It also reframes that crime scene we talked about, the disarray, the suicide note. If he was researching how to kill them a week prior, all of that chaos in the house was just set dressing.
Precisely. It was a script he had already written.
Yeah.
And that evidence was enough for a judge to set his bond at $60 million. He is not walking out of prison.
But here's the question I have, and I think you probably have too. Why now? If this was his search history, why didn't they have this in 2010?
That is the million-dollar question. Digital forensics has come a very long way in 15 years. It's possible the data was deleted and overwritten, and only new advanced recovery tools could pull it back.
Or
Investigators held it. It's a controversial theory, but think about this. If they charged him with murder in 2010 without bodies, they risked an acquittal. If he's acquitted, double jeopardy attaches. He can never be tried again, even if the bodies are found later.
so they went for the unlawful imprisonment charge because it was a slam dunk.
It guaranteed he went to prison for 10 to 15 years. It bought them time. It's possible they had this search history as a failsafe. But the timing, 2 weeks before release, it suggests a very high-stakes game of chess.
It's terrifying to think about that gamble. But let's look at the prosecution now. Even with this search history, they're still in a no-body homicide case. Is a Google search enough to convict someone of murder?
It's arguably the most difficult type of murder case to win. Juries want DNA. They want a cause of death. But it's not impossible. No body convictions happen when the circumstantial evidence becomes so overwhelming there is no other logical explanation.
So you stack it up. The motive, the opportunity, the fake alibi, the staged crime scene, and now the intent, the search history.
Exactly. The totality of the circumstances. And that DOJ report on missing children homicides says that 52% of child abduction killers conceal the body. It's a standard part of the crime for this profile.
And where do they usually hide them?
Usually within a mile and a half of the murder site.
Right.
But John had a car. And we know from phone records there was a window of time where his phone was tracked near the Ohio-Michigan border. A lot of rural farmland out there.
The DOJ's stats also mention something about killers returning to the scene.
Yes, in 22% of cases, they return to the body site. Now, we don't know if he did that, but we do know he has maintained 15 years of silence. He had a head start before anyone even knew those boys were missing.
It's just devastating to think about that window of time where nobody was looking for them yet.
And that silence is key. He has never cracked. He has never hinted at a location. That suggests he knows that if they are found, his story completely evaporates. Because why search for ways to kill if you're just giving them to a sanctuary?
Right.
The search history is the linchpin. It ties the intent to the outcome.
So where do we stand now? It's January 2026. John Skelton is facing these murder charges. If the boys were alive today...
Andrew would be 24. Alexander would be 22. Tanner would be 20. They would be young men. They missed everything. High school, driving, first loves, graduation.
That really puts it in perspective. Tanya Zuvers, the mother, she released a statement after the charges were filed. She called it a significant moment in a long and painful journey.